right now inside Tibet is a death sentence for Tibetans and especially for the nomadic community. For millions of years, Tibetan nomads have lived sustainably on the land and are the guardians of Tibet's fragile environment. At least 2.25 million, a third of Tibetans, live nomadic or semi-nomadic life. In 1998, China declared that an end to the nomadic way of life would be sought by the end of the century. Although China missed the deadline, efforts intensified, and by 2010, 200,000 families, or 1.4 million Tibetans, had been forcefully resettled into ghetto-style housing blocks. Resettled nomads are denied the right to freely determine their own future, and cohesive settlement offers little economic opportunities, causing social and economic problems, including unemployment, alcoholism, and suicide. Unfortunately, after the nomads are resettled in towns, on the one hand, they have no income, and on the other, they don't have the food which they have been eaten since they were children. The Chinese government's forced resettlement of the Tibetan nomads is in complete violation of the Tibetan people's right to development, which is a fundamental human right. We have heard about the self-immolations in Tibet, 25 within the past year and 26 since 2009. Tibetans have made the ultimate sacrifice by giving up their life. They have created a conflict in the way the Chinese government responds to the Tibetan resistance movement. How do you crack down on people that are ready to sacrifice their life? The Tibetans have consciously made a decision to choose the strategy as a way of defying Chinese rule over occupied Tibet. We have to remember, Tibet is an occupied nation, and Tibetans in Tibet are outright demanding that they cannot wait another day, another year. They want freedom, freedom for Tibet now. The Tibetan resistance to Chinese occupation is happening all across Tibet. To share a few of the success stories of Tibetan people's non-cooperative and civil disobedience movement, Tibetan villagers have successfully halted a controversial mining operation that threatened the drilling of Mount Kawakabo, one of the most sacred peaks in Tibet, situated on the border between Tibet and Yunnan province. When the villagers' request to withdraw the mining project was repeatedly met with abuse and threats from the local Chinese officials and the mining company, the villagers threw $300,000 worth of the mining equipment into the New River. In the face of mass protests and mounting tensions, the mining company was forced to leave. Another homegrown people's movement that has emerged in Tibet since the 2008 uprising is the Hakar movement. Hakar means White Wednesday in Tibetan, and Wednesday is considered special by Tibetans because it is the sole day of the Dalai Lama. Every Wednesday, a growing number of Tibetans in Tibet are channeling their spirit of resistance into social, economic, and cultural activities by eating Tibetan food, wearing Tibetan dress, and eating only Tibetan food to support the Tibetan restaurants. This Hakar movement is both self-constructive in that it promotes Tibetan language, culture, and identity, and is also non-cooperative since the Tibetans are refusing to support Chinese institutions and businesses in occupied Tibet. These are actions Tibetans in Tibet have taken on a grassroots level through non-violence means to resist the illegal Chinese occupation of Tibet. The Tibetans in Tibet are taking the measures into their own hands, and they have been resisting and continue to resist the Chinese colonial rule over Tibet. We need to join them and do everything in our power to amplify the demands for a free Tibet. In the past year, Egyptians, Tunisians, Libyans, Syrians, and the people around the world have risen up and shown the world and shown the world that the time is up for dictators. Through the self-immolations, the protests, and the acts of civil disobedience, Tibetans are also telling the world that one more day under the Chinese imperial rule is one day too many. We cannot wait any longer. Tibet must be free. Pegelo.